Many people buy a firearm for self-defense, but never attend any form of formal, more serious, more advanced training. Not because they don't want to learn, but because they think they'll be judged or embarrassed or they simply won't fit in. Today, we're joined by three senior loan operator instructors, Gerard van der Westhuizen, Scott McLean, and Dirk Oosthuizen, to unpack what first-time students really experience on the range, what makes a good instructor, and why good training should build confidence, not intimidation. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome.
Evening, Rian.
Evening,
Hi,
Rian.
Okay. I'll nominate so we can go in there. All you guys can just pile in as you feel. It doesn't really matter. My first question is, what do you think most first-time students expect before they arrive for training? And how much of that expectation is shaped by social media and this whole tactical image that the firearms culture loves to portray online? Scott, you're on screen, so I'm going to start with you.
Rian, I think in part of social media and I guess the unknowing, I think people would expect straight off the bat a very high action-packed, like you said, tactical training course or module, 500 rounds downrange, that kind of thing. Very intense straight off the bat. And wanting to do everything as soon as possible, if that makes sense. Not understanding in the beginning, slowing it down and learning what the fundamentals are and actually learning the fundamentals and applying from there, building your base.
Gerard?
Yeah, Rian, much like Scott said, the problem these days with social media, with all these short reels people post, it's fast, action-packed, a lot of movement, and that sort of creates expectation from new students. But you cannot shoot like that, move like that, if you do not start with the basic, simple fundamentals, ground level. Irrespective of how many years you've had a firearm or shot, you need to start at the baseline.
Yeah, and I think generally most, I hope, of the guys who do those the tactical, let's call it that, videos, for lack of a better word, know that if they're dealing with a newbie, you have to start them somewhere at a much more basic level. You can't start there. But I suppose it's all about what course you're joining up for and what you're going to get. Dirk?
Rian, most definitely, like Gerard and Scott said, everybody is seeing the short videos or clips or stuff like that. And then they think about it, but when I did my competency, I put 10 shots on a piece of A4 paper. So if that guy can do it, I can do it. But what they don't actually see or think about is how much is that guy, how much time is he putting in so that he can be able to do it like that. And that is something that's not shared on social media. Nobody is putting up videos and say, okay, today I went for dry fire, this is the amount of shots, blah, 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 and carry on. And that is after 6 months, 2 months, whatever time, they can see the process from this is where I started and this is where I am now. And this is the reason why I can do this. So yes, most people look at the videos and say, but if he can do it, I can do it. And they don't
most people don't see that
understand the
start point.
fundamentals.
Yeah,
Yes,
they don't see that
exactly.
start point, that initial beginning. What was day 0?
But
They
do you
see
think
day
people
2000.
do you think people avoid proper firearms training entirely or partially because they feel they won't belong for whatever reason? I mean, most people are not, they're just normal everyday guys going through their lives. They don't, they don't live very macho lives. And people look at the firearms training scene and it looks on the face of it very macho, it's by nature. And obviously also there are a lot of alpha males in this environment. So there's a lot of macho-ness involved in it, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Do you think that makes some people feel that, I'm not going to belong, I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be made a fool of? So, yeah, I'll rather just go do 50 shots at the range when I get a gap instead of joining actual training. Do you think that plays a role? Gerard, you're on screen. I'll start with you.
Yeah, Rian, what we've seen a lot is people do not like being judged, for lack of a better word. So they get to a range, they're afraid they're going to even shoot a piece of paper miss, even though they're there to learn how to actually shoot accurately, but they feel they're going to get judged from their peers or from other shooters on the range. And that keeps people away from a lot of training sessions, is that judgment and embarrassment that they're afraid of. And then a lot of times what we also see, if you dig deeper into it, I mean, one thing that we have started focusing on a lot is training ladies, where the misperception was there a lot that the gun world is for men. Big misperception. And we've tried to create, or we did create a course for them where we just have ladies, focus on them, so there's no judgment from the alpha males or husbands or whatever you may call it. It's a bunch of ladies together and they feel a lot more confident on range and to learn. So to mitigate or to get rid of that misperception or misconception, that takes a lot of time and effort.
But do you guys think this online culture, this, I don't know, I'm going to call it operator culture for lack of a better description. It feels apt to me because it looks like that, all the gear, etc., etc. Do you think that amplifies the message of this isn't for you, in a subconscious way? I mean, it's probably not intentional, but do you think there's a danger of that happening, and that can keep people away from training, Scott?
Yeah, I do. I agree, Rian. Especially when it comes to equipment and what you see online, people straight off the bat, I mean, a first-time shooter, or maybe you don't even have a firearm, and you want to go and purchase. If you haven't already been told that you're paranoid, then you walk into a gun shop, you don't know what to choose. You don't know if someone is actually giving you honest advice or if they're just trying to sell you something because they're on incentive. And then if you do have kit, is it cool enough? Am I going to be good enough? Do I need to compete with everyone else there? Will I be laughed at? Will I be judged, like Gerard said? And I think, the industry is predominantly full of ego and bravado. And I think that's like a massive step for people to just kind of just get past. And I think when you do start training, and what Gerard brought up now is with the ladies that train at Lone Operator and at Fortis, how they approach their training and the results that they get in such a short period of time. When the guys on the line train with them, the ego is crushed quite quickly, which is a good thing. Your training will advance. So it's this unsure intimidation that you're not quite sure of, that you've just got to almost take a leap of faith.
Is it safe to say then, Dirk, I'm going to go to you with this one. Is it safe to say that maybe the silent majority of people who then end up never ending a training course is not because of a lack of access, it's because of a perception? Because, uh, you know, I mean, I know a lot of the guys who do training, and yeah, a lot of them look very tactical, and you know, you guys, when you're on the range, depending on what module you're doing, look very tactical in between. Everybody does that. But once you get to know these guys, once you understand that you're dealing with somebody who's is dressing for a specific purpose because that range gear works for what they're going to do. It's not necessarily for this like, yeah, I'm so cool. They are very knowledgeable and very skilled, and in I'm going to just play it safe and say in most cases, I trust very able to convey that knowledge to students. So that perception is just something that people need to be able to either see past or just take that step almost into the unknown, and understand that, just open your mind because you're going to learn. Dirk?
No, Rian, definitely. uh, like you've all said, it's the misperception. Um, some guy might have his firearm for, let's say, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. His grandfather taught him how to shoot, so yes, he can shoot. He can pull a trigger. Let me put it like that. He can pull a trigger. Everybody can pull a trigger. But as they need to understand that you are still responsible for where that bullet lands. So rather come and get the training, forget the ego. Leave the ego totally at home. Come, sit in the class, listen to what he said, and just take it in. Think about it, rethink about it, um, and then make your choices. How can I say? Do I want to come back for the second class? Is this instructor really knowledgeable? Did he touch? He might touch some nerves of the way you were thinking, the way he's explaining something, or whatever the case might be. But the big thing is leave the ego and be willing to learn. Don't just come to the range and think, okay, we're going to shoot 50 or 60 or 80 rounds. It's going to be a fun day at the range. You need to be, how can I say, open yourself up for learning, and then you will make it better for your teammates, for the instructors, for everybody. But I'm going to say it out loud. Nobody likes a smartass, especially students or instructor on the range that thinks he knows everything. I won't say I have an answer to everything, but be knowledgeable. If you can pull it into a real life situation. If this happens, for instance, you might react like ABCD. But will ABCD be the right option? Have you ever think about what about X, Y, and Z? Why in that situation it might be better, or why it might not be better? Just to open up the way of thinking.
So
So will it be better?
be teachable.
Yes, always be teachable.
When a brand new student walks onto a range, this is now somebody who's taken that first step, taken a deep breath, and decided, okay, I'm joining a course. I'm gonna look past this perception, and I'm gonna give it a go. What do they need in those first few hours beyond just the technical instruction to start laying this foundation of, hey, you're learning, you are in the right place, you made a good choice, you need to think about coming back for more, that kind of thing. What do they need? And this is for me where the instructors play such a crucial role. Dirk, while you're on screen, I'm going to just go with you.
Rian, first of all, and most important, through every class, every session, doesn't matter what, firearm safety. What is it? Why is it there? and how to apply it, how to actually go and apply it in your real life situation. Not really a story, but I was mocked at work because I was drilling, and every time I'm done drilling, I take my finger off the button actually. And everybody wants to know why. But if you think about it, isn't that the same as a firearm you are holding, pressing the trigger, taking your finger off? So that needs to become a narrow pathway
Habit.
in your a habit, like Gerard just said. It needs to become a habit, and it doesn't matter if it's a drill, a spray bottle, or whatever. So it needs to be a habit, and first of all, safety, like I said, firearm safety, and calmness of the instructor. They need to be calm, and the way you talk to students plays a huge role, especially with new guys that are not really comfortable because it's new. They know nobody knows them. So, yeah, I would say if the instructor is calm and first of all focus on firearm safety. What is the 4 safety rules?
So the instructor needs to be an anchor in that time specifically. Instead of it shouldn't be all about performance. Look at me, look at me. You need to convey to the student that you understand that they new, that you understand that they are feeling out of sorts and tensed up and everything, but you're in the right place now. Gerard?
No, true, Rian. The more calm you are, your tone of voice, your body posture, your attitude, the calmer the student will be. But then also, coming back to the safety, you cannot assume everyone knows all the safety rules, like Dirk said. And if they do know the safety rules, why and how? So you need to get away from assuming what they know, break it down into small little bits, and explain every little piece. That will make them more confident. That will make them realize they're in a safe space, safe environment. And then when they start asking questions, which is usually difficult at the start because no one wants to ask a question because I don't want to ask a stupid question. You need to sort of encourage it. And when a question is asked, doesn't matter how stupid it might sound to you as an instructor, you deal with it as it's the first time you hear that question, or the student needs to know what's going on and deal with it in a proper, calm manner. So he doesn't now feel like, okay, I'm not going to say anything again because this guy just made me feel like a bloody idiot. And that will also cause him not to return on the next course.
Scott, what about something like, laying out a clear structure of what they're going to do, what they can expect? As Gerard also said, why they can expect to do this. Do you think that's part of this whole first hour cycle?
Yes, most definitely, especially for new shooters. Clear structure, explain the how paramount safety is. Everything else is a learning curve. And like the guys just said now, explain why those safety rules are there as fail-safes, why they must be understood and practiced relentlessly, not only on the range, how it carries forward into handling of the firearm. It's not just about shooting, it's about the handling and manipulation of the firearm. It's the mindset. And then on the range, yeah, clear instructions, good structure, realistic expectations, what you want from the students. Be calm, lay out what's going to happen for the day, and in the immediate 20 minutes, how the courses of fire are run, the exact way that you are going to run the line. And if they have any questions, just raise their hand. There's no such thing as a stupid question.
Hmm.
Bottom line is safety. Everything else, we take it from there.
What makes a new student, and we're back to new students now. I suppose any student who's working with a new instructor, but what makes them instinctively trust an instructor? What are they looking at or reading at in those first interactions before you even starting to teach the class? I'm thinking about, are you calm? Are you shutting down questions like you just said, Scott? That ego kind of a thing. What are they looking at in order to pacify them and make them feel relaxed and make them feel that they can trust you? Scott?
I think straight away, you want to welcome someone. That could be the first day of many years that you could spend teaching students. And understand that students, instructors, you're all on the same page. We all have, especially where we live, we have a lot in common. And try relate as much as you can. And understand, ask as many questions as well, being an instructor. And I would say, especially the beginning of their journey, be calm, leave the ego as well. It's not just the students. And, people are perceptive. They can pick this stuff up. Be patient, and it goes a long way. It makes the students feel a bit more relaxed, so they can not stress at like 80% straight off the bat before they even have to pick up their firearm.
Yeah, so newbies, you want to ease them into it a little bit more. This isn't, if it's an advanced course for somebody who's done many training courses or has been training for a long time, that's a completely different scenario. Gerard, on that point, talking about instructors, how important are things like your tone of voice, your body language, your patience, your composure, your emotional control and stuff when you are working with brand new shooters?
Yeah, I mean, before you even say a word, the students see you, how you handle yourself, what's your composure, your gait, are you confident? So that's even before you say anything. So if you are confident, if you portray yourself confident, but also critically confidence without arrogance, big difference. They pick that up.
Yes.
And then the tone of voice, are you talking to them in a calm but assertive manner? Are you calm under pressure when difficult questions get being asked? Do you, again, tell them, listen, ask any question you want. Is it welcomed? How do you reply to those questions? Students pick up on small little things, and that makes them either interact more, listen more, or they just completely retract.
Yeah, they cut you off.
Yes.
And then from that point on, they don't hear what you say.
And you as an instructor, when you've done it for a while, you can immediately see that disconnect. And then,
yes.
Okay, you need to, in your mind, realize, okay, what just happened? And can I now fix this? Instead of just carrying on and, I don't know, reading the syllabus or rambling off something in your head. Can you interact with the students? Can you feel what they are portraying and be part of them and get them back into your court?
Yes. Yeah, and preferably you want to start laying that foundation right from the get-go, from when you greet them on the range. Make them feel at home. Make them feel they're in the right place.
That's the foundation.
You got up early today because you made a good choice, and I'm going to prove that to you.
Yeah.
Dirk, every instructor sometimes, or with certain things specifically, needs to be firm in instruction, specifically when it comes to safety matters. But there is a fine line, I think, between that firmness and maybe unnecessary intimidation, unnecessary harshness, maybe. Where is that line, do you think?
Rian, yeah, consistency, I would take that as consistency because you can't for instance, now I let something finger on a trigger slide. Next time I'm letting something else slide. That cannot happen, especially with firearms. So consistency from day one, from get-go, needs to stay the same right through until the end. So how do you determine where the line is or how thick the line is? Comes back to one simple thing actually. Sometimes on the line, especially on the fundamental courses, we get persons that's been shooting for 10, 20 years. You get people that are shooting for one day. You get people that never have shot a firearm before. So you need that consistency to tell everybody, today's class, we're going to start off. I don't care what your background is. We're going to start at the bottom and work everybody up so that everybody can be on the same level. If you are shooting good at this exercise, good for you. But unfortunately, we're going to have to redo it until everybody is on that same, how can I say, that same level. And then we can progress. Because what we also sometimes see is as the lone operator course progress, module 1 you are doing this, module 2 this, module 3 this, module 4 that, and then all of a sudden, let's say for instance module 5, you see, okay, but this person or this group or whatever is still struggling with this, it's struggling with that, struggling with this, not doing this right, not thinking clearly, but just doing without proper thinking what they are doing or why they are doing it. And then you need to stop everybody and bring them back and say, okay, guys, remember, module 1 was this is what we did, and this is the reason why. Can everybody remember? And then that small little light bulb comes on. Yes, okay, now we remember. So that's where the consistency, I would say, comes in, so that everything flows smoothly forward.
Gerard, do you think there's a danger of having an intimidating presence from the instructor versus a commanding presence? One that can show people, okay, this is my range, I'm in charge, without intimidating them, just so that they know this is the guy who says, if you do this, you do this on the range, because you know why you're saying it. You've got their safety in mind first and foremost. And do you think that sometimes that line gets a bit blurry?
Yes. Sometimes that line can become very thin, but in my opinion, an intimidating presence from an instructor is usually an ego-driven presence. It's all about the instructor. It's about me. I'm this good. I can shoot this fast. I can do this and this and this. But at the end of the day, they are not there for you or because of you. They are there to learn something.
From
So
you.
if you, exactly, from you as an instructor, they need to learn from the basics. Irrespective of how fast you can shoot or what you can do, that's besides the point. That's the ego part. The commanding presence is when you, from the get-go, are assertive but friendly, and with, say, safety rules, you make them understand there's no sliding on the safety rules. It is what it is. There's consequences. And you need to, again, with your body language and your tone of voice, portray authority so they listen to you without the ego coming through. That's where sometimes a lot of people can get that balance mixed up.
So there should be a difference between ego-driven instruction and purpose-driven instruction.
Yeah, most definitely. Because once it's ego-driven, like I said, you don't really care about the people in front of you, the students. You just carry on rambling on, teach what you think you're going to teach them, but they pick it up that it's ego and it's all about you, and you will sort of start losing a lot of the class. Because, yeah, okay, I'm never going to be this good. Look at this guy. Instead of just taking a step back and calm down, make it about the student.
That. Scott, now I wanna come in from the left field a little bit. Should firearms training always feel comfortable for a new shooter? And if you say no, how do you challenge people properly while still keeping them receptive and able to learn?
I think people need to realize that they are capable of much more. People, whether they know it or not, are always up for a challenge. And at the same time, you keep standards high. It goes from student to student. But I think once you start explaining the entire process, and we're all on this journey, like Gerhard just said. Now, someone might feel intimidated watching someone make it all about himself and think, "Wow, I can never get there," and understand that someone else who's 10 times better than him could see another amazing instructor or shooter, and how he picks that up is it could be too intimidating for him as well. So we're all on this same kind of journey, the same road to this work in progress, if that makes sense. It just we've got to explain that it's consistency. It takes willingness on their part and discipline. So you want to get through to the student on what we do, why we do it, give them realistic goals for that day, show them that they can improve, but with consistency and discipline and willingness to do so. Go home and practice, put some effort into it, come back and just start knocking those goals and see those results.
So, in other words, try not to overload them in the beginning. You can sort of keep the intensity, have some intensity, but you introduce it gradually. It's not from the get-go necessarily, because I've spoken to many people who have gone through processes like that, where from the get-go there was this massive, almost intimidation factor, violent, hard. And the reality is that whether you like it or not, many, if not most people, are not made for that. It's one thing to say, if you're in a fight for your life, that's what you're going to get. It's quite another thing to get somebody who's been a very relaxed, calm, non-emotional human being for their whole lives, this loving, caring kind of person, and they walk into a class and it's like they walk into the eye of the storm immediately. I've always, and I've spoken to, as I said, many people who've been through something like that, where they just never went back. And I don't know if that is really the goal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Too much too
I think,
soon.
Too much too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scott, what did you want to say?
Yeah, no, like you said, if you give someone too much too soon, especially in the beginning of their learning journey, it's overwhelming, and they, will most probably think, okay, well, not right now, or this isn't for me.
Rian, just to
Yes.
add to that, most people see especially on social media, they see, let's take, for instance, vehicles or whatever the situation might be, that in this situation you must do A, B, C, D. But nobody actually shows them, okay, but this is why you do A, this is why you do B, this is why you do C. And you can actually break everything down to, okay, now we're only focusing on this. Now we're only focusing on that, and then we're going to focus on that. And let's say at the end of the day, let's put ABC together and see how people reaction change from the first time they do it and the last time, or the after training session, how they do it then. I personally think most people think real life situation, so you need to train in real life situation. But Scott and Gerard would know, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And if you don't do it slow until you do it smooth, you will not be able to do it fast and accurately. That's just how it works.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
will
I
fumble.
think at the end of the day, and if obviously there will be people who differ from this, and it's a free country, go for it. But I think specifically for a student who's new to all of this, you want them to preferably go home with almost a feeling of, wow, that was amazing. I learned so much, and at the same time thinking, I'm very aware of the fact that there are gaps after today. I've picked up on this as we went through this. So I think I need more training. I want to go back. I think if you can manage to let the student go home with that mindset rather than, no, that's too much. I'm going to go and braai and forget about this. I think then you've probably won in the long run.
You want to leave them in the mindset that I want to learn more. I need to know more. There's more to this. That's why that fundamentals, that foundation is so important. Otherwise, you lose a student and possibly someone that could have saved his own or his family's life.
Well, I mean, that's also why the loan operator course is structured in such a way that the first batch of modules is aimed at getting the fundamentals up to scratch.
Exactly.
I mean, it would help if students go home and actually practice dry firing, and come back, so they can apply that improvement during the next module. At the end of the day, that helps themselves. Gerard, how do you correct mistakes firmly and effectively without humiliating a student or just shutting them down mentally?
Yeah, Rian, that's also where a lot of experience comes in, because you can address some mistakes in general, like stop the whole group. I've picked this up, focus on this, try and do this. But then after that, focus on the student that you've picked up, made the mistake, that he actually applies what you've said. So by doing that, you don't pick on him or you don't highlight him. Then you make it part of the whole group, part of the whole learning syllabus. You say, okay, listen, this is a learning moment, that kind of thing. But when it comes to real safety issues, stuff like that, is you have to address that person, but with dignity, not come down on him like a sack of potatoes and shout at him. That's unnecessary. Yes, he made a mistake.
Yes.
Make him understand, listen, this is a mistake. This is how it should be done. This is why we do not do stuff this way. in a calm, low-tone manner, but assertive. There's no need to belittle someone in front of his whole class.
Ja, hierdie is nie die army nie.
No, we are not in those era anymore, so that's not going to work. And then obviously make sure you can see that the student understands what you are trying to tell him. Don't let him just, okay, yes, shake his head. Make sure he can apply what you've now taught him and showed him how to correct it. Instead of just, okay, this is how you should do it, and then move on. You sort of miss the whole point. Make sure you understand and see that he understands what you're doing.
Scott, do you think some new students mistake firmness, because sometimes you have to be firm, and discipline on that range, or maybe correction? Do you think they sometimes mistake that for hostility simply because they're not used to a more structured training environment?
Yeah, I would say if what Dirk mentioned earlier, let's just say, for example, your grandfather taught you how to shoot, and you grew up a couple of years shooting a couple of different guns in a nice, happy, controlled environment, and you are not used to, you've never been on a specifically structured course, how things are run a certain way. You're not familiar with specific safety rules, or maybe even you haven't spent the entire day standing, concentrating, shooting. It's a whole new world for that person. A lot to learn, a massive amount of concentration. And I think either inexperience, or I wouldn't say arrogance, but just assumptions or not knowing. You could also be handling a firearm a certain way that you didn't realize is unsafe, for example. So it might come across a bit harsh in the beginning, being told, no, that's not the way it should be. This is the way it is, across the board. And especially if, maybe you did breach a safety rule and someone had to be quite stern without being arrogant, and, you didn't do it on purpose. So I could see how that would come across, yeah.
How do you address that then? I mean, the fact for me is that you cannot be responsible for somebody else's feelings. And I mean, that if you address somebody, even if you're trying to do it in a firm way, but not coming over as, I'm not attacking you, I'm correcting you. Somebody can still perceive it wrong, because it's triggering something in them, whether it's from something that's happened in their life, something that they're battling with, maybe they're having a bad day, it doesn't matter. How do you handle a situation like that when you realize, but the student is, I've now corrected the student understands that what they did was unsafe, but I can see in the body language that they're not happy with that. They're kind of resenting that, because personalities differ. Gerard, how do you address something like that?
The thing is, a lot of people, are set in their ways because that's how they've been taught. And you're not going to teach me now. I've done it for years. You have to correct them. You have to tell them this is how it's been done. And again, like we said earlier, explain the why. Not because I say so. Because then you get a lot of kickback. If you sort of make them think it's because I say so and that's the way I want it to be done. It's a case of, this is how you should, say, for instance, grip the firearm instead of say, cup and saucer, because of this and this and this and this. Make them understand that, break it down into smaller little bits. That usually starts to sink through them. I've had a couple of students not in the class, but after the class, went to try that again on a different range. Came back to me and it's like, okay, now I understand what you were trying to tell me.
Oh,
Because of breaking it down
baby
into small pieces.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the other issue also, unfortunately, these days, being stern to students is, yeah, I might step on some toes now, but a lot of today's society, people take it personally. You're
That's
attacking
true.
me.
Yes.
You're not attacking or not addressing the problem or the issue. That person feels like you're attacking them as a person. And that's unfortunately, you see it all over these days in today's society. And that's a very difficult barrier to break through.
Yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah.
Dirk, if you now have your brand new shooter on the range, and they're now done with their first proper training experience, and we've touched on this earlier, but just in closure, what determines whether they come back for more? How do you want them to feel like when they walk away from that range?
Rian, first of all, confidence. They need to have some sort of confidence. I arrived at the range with this expectation, or not really expectation, but I wasn't comfortable with this thing. It's new, it's big, it's heavy, or it's small, and I thought it will work for concealed carry, but now with recoil and I think I made a bad choice. But to step away and feel okay, I feel more comfortable with this firearm. How it works, I understand better why A, B, and C needs to be applied, like grip, sight, and squeeze for shooting, and respect for firearms. Don't just think, okay, I have one, and the instructor said, but it's only a tool. So I'm going to handle it as a tool. I'm going to address it as a tool. But respect for that piece of steel that is lying there or in your holster, on your body, wherever. But I have respect for that. And
it can go bang.
It can go bang, and yeah, I need to apply the safety rules and everything so that if it accidentally go bang, that it's in the right direction, or if I make it go bang, that the bullet needs to land where I intended it to land and not everywhere in the crowd, wherever it might be.
But
So
just to clarify that bit, um, a firearm generally doesn't go bang when it's lying on the table there. They tend to go bang by accident when somebody is handling it, right?
100%.
Yes.
Except it's the SIG.
Yeah.
But not any SIG. It needs to be a P320. Just to clarify that bit.
Just to
Not all
clarify,
SIGs are
yes.
bad.
Yeah. Um, Scott?
I would say, yes, sorry. Still laughing at the SIG comment. I would say, yeah, definitely confidence in knowing that, especially if you were worried about the gun going bang, that you are now in control of its safety because you understand it and you can apply the correct methods. And once you start knowing, understanding, and applying the fundamentals, how that actually carries everything forward, especially with accuracy, knowing that you are in control with practice and intent of your shot placement. If it's off, you can break it down as to why and you can fix it. It's liberating. It's a sense of accomplishment.
skills are built through training, but your confidence tends to get built in the right training environment. A good instructor doesn't just teach people how to shoot, he guides them. He teaches them how to learn, how to improve, how to start performing under pressure, and how to have respect for carrying that potentially deadly tool. Because there is a lot of responsibility that goes along with that. If you've been considering taking your first firearms course, then hopefully today's discussion has shown that everyone has to start somewhere. And the first step is often the most important one. If you like this episode, please click the like button. Please subscribe to the channel and please smash that bell icon so you can get notifications of new videos coming out. And as always, if you're interested in any of the training on offer under Lone Operator and Fortis Proactive Defense Solutions, there is a link in the description below. Check it out. We look forward, well, these three gentlemen look forward to seeing you on a range one of these days.
Indeed.
Dirk, Scott, Gerard, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks,
Thanks, Rian. Thanks, guys.